Right, you know the scene. It's Saturday afternoon. You've somehow managed to drag this huge, heavy cardboard box up the
Oh,
stairs.
I'm already tired.
You rip it open, and poof, your living room is just, it's a sea of styrofoam and particle board. You grab that little Allen key, you look at the instructions, which are basically hieroglyphics, and you think,
I got this.
I got this.
Yeah.
You know what? It's just a table, 4 legs, a top. How hard can this possibly be?
We've all been there. That exact moment of, let's call it unearned confidence.
Totally. But we also know exactly where that story goes. Fast forward, 45 minutes? You're sweating, you're frustrated, the shelf is definitely leaning.
It's got a slant.
And worst of all, you look down, and there on the carpet are 3 leftover screws.
Ah, the leftover screws. It's like the universal symbol for, I definitely missed a step.
And if you're anything like me, you do the only logical thing. You sweep them into a drawer, you shove a folded-up napkin under the short leg, and you just pray nobody puts anything heavy on it.
Which works just fine until it really, really doesn't. But here's the thing. That whole scenario, the confidence, the wobble, the leftover screws, that's happening in your company's data department, probably right now.
And that right there is pretty much the whole idea behind our deep dive today. We're looking at a piece called the Assembly Manual for Data Governance. And I have to say, usually when we talk about governance, my eyes kind of glaze over.
It's a dry topic.
Very. But this source, it takes a completely different angle. It basically argues we're thinking about governance all wrong.
It really does. It flips the script. I mean, most people hear data governance and they think police. They think of red tape, slow approvals, people whose job it is to just say no.
Exactly. It feels like homework, like something you have to do, not something you want to do.
But this manual says governance isn't some big philosophy or, a set of laws. It's literally just the instruction manual that we all throw away because we think we're smart enough to build the system without it.
So our mission today is really specific. We're not here to give you a lecture on data purity. We want to give you a new way to talk about this, a way to sell the concept to people in your organization who hate the word governance.
Because if you walk into a boardroom and say, we need better metadata management, you're going to get blank stares.
You might get asked to leave.
Yeah, you might. But if you walk in and say, we need to stop building tables that collapse the second we put a coffee cup on them, now you're having a real conversation.
Okay, so let's unpack this leftover screw idea, because I think that's where the real insight is. In the real world, leftover screws mean you skipped a step. What's the corporate version of that?
Well, just think about the last time your company launched a new system. A new CRM, a marketing tool, anything. What was the vibe in the room?
Usually panic mixed with a lot of adrenaline. We have to hit the Q3 deadline, just get it live, that sort of thing.
Speed is the only metric that matters, right? So the team sprints, they configure the tool, they set up all the logins, and they push the button to go live at like 5:00 p.m. on a Friday.
And champagne corks are popping, high fives all around.
Exactly. They finished on time, the furniture is standing.
But they threw away the instructions.
They absolutely did. In that big rush to go live, they skipped all the foundational work. They never actually defined what a customer is. They didn't agree on naming conventions. They didn't decide who even owns the data if something goes wrong.
So those are the leftover screws.
Yes. And here's the really dangerous part. The moment you launch, the system seems to work. You can log in. You can type stuff in. It looks like a total success. The table is standing up.
This is the ignorance is bliss phase, right? Everyone thinks the project was a huge win because nobody can see the missing structural support. Not yet.
But then comes what the source calls the 6-month wobble.
I love that phrase. It's so accurate. The wobble never happens on day one. It happens when you actually try to use the thing you built.
Right. 6 months later, the business tries to lean on that table. Maybe finance tries to pull a revenue report from that new CRM, and suddenly the numbers they don't match what's in the real accounting system.
Ah, yes. The classic, why does marketing's report say we made 10 million, but finances says we only made 8 meeting?
That's the wobble. Or maybe you try to connect that data to another tool, and the integration just breaks every single night.
Yeah.
Because the date formats are all different.
So what happens then? Do they go back and rebuild it properly?
Almost never. What usually happens is that the users, the actual people trying to do their jobs, they just start creating workarounds. They stop trusting the system.
They export everything to Excel.
Yep. They fix it by hand, and then they start emailing spreadsheets back and forth.
The dreaded shadow IT. That is the duct tape holding the wobbly shelf together.
It is exactly like duct tape. It's ugly, it's not going to scale, and eventually the glue just fails. And here's the real tragedy. When the whole thing becomes an unmanageable mess, who gets the blame?
It's always IT. Or the tool itself. You hear people say things like, oh, this software is so clunky, or this ERP is just terrible.
But the source makes a really critical point here. It says, and I'm quoting loosely, the system isn't broken. It was assembled without instructions.
Oof. That's a tough pill for leadership to swallow. It means the money they spent on that shiny new software wasn't wasted because the software was bad. It was wasted because they didn't have the discipline to put it together correctly.
And that gets us to the real problem, right? How do you convince those leaders to care about the instructions before the wobble starts?
Yeah.
Because, like you said, governance has a terrible brand.
Yeah, if I go to my boss and say, I need budget for a data governance council, they just hear overhead. They hear slow.
Yeah, so don't say that. The source suggests a complete vocabulary shift. Stop talking about things like compliance and start talking about build quality assurance.
Build quality assurance. Okay, I like that. It sounds much more like engineering. It sounds like something that prevents, I don't know, explosions.
It connects to outcomes they actually give a damn about.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying, we need to document our data lineage, you say, we need an assembly guide so we don't have to spend $50,000 rebuilding this thing in 6 months.
You're not selling documentation. You're selling the avoidance of rework.
Exactly. You appeal to their wallet. The source lists the benefits really clearly. Lower maintenance costs,
Yeah.
faster onboarding for new people because they actually have a manual they can read, and way fewer operational disruptions. You're not selling clean data. You're selling a sturdy table.
Okay, so let's say our listeners are convinced. They're nodding along. They want to be the quality assurance person. But what does that actually look like in practice? We can't just tell them, don't skip the instructions. We need to tell them what the instructions actually are.
Right. And this is where we get to the build checklist. The source breaks it down into really practical steps. And rule number 1 is, do not try to boil the ocean.
Meaning, don't try to go back and fix 10 years of accumulated bad data all at once.
You'll burn out in a week. No, instead, you pick one active project, something that's being built right now. And before it's allowed to go live, you make the team check 5 specific boxes.
All right, let's go through these deep dive style. Because they seem simple, but I have a feeling the devil is in the details. First up, data definitions are documented.
This sounds so basic. Define your terms. But in a big company, this is where the wars start.
Give me a real-world example. Why is that so hard?
Take the word customer. It seems simple, right?
Right.
But ask your sales team what a customer is. They'll say, anyone who signed a contract. Ask finance. They'll say, anyone who has actually paid an invoice. Ask marketing, and they'll say, anyone who downloaded our white paper.
And all 3 of those could be true. So you launch a system without deciding which one is the truth for this system.
And 6 months down the line, the CEO asks, how many new customers did we get last quarter? And you have 3 VPs shouting 3 totally different numbers.
Yeah.
And nobody's wrong, but nobody's right, because it was never written down.
So the checklist item is, get those people in a room and agree on one definition of customer before you even build the field in the database.
Precisely. Okay, item number 2 on the checklist. Ownership is assigned.
This sounds like the who's responsible if a screw comes loose question.
And it's the corporate game of not it. Usually, IT builds the pipe, but they don't own the water flowing through it. But the business side, they think IT owns the data because it lives on their servers.
So when the data is wrong, you have duplicate accounts for the same client. Sales blames IT blames sales, and the data just stays dirty forever.
The checklist forces you to put a name next to a data element. Jane in sales operations owns customer address data. If it's wrong, Jane has to fix it. If Jane leaves, her replacement owns it. No more ambiguity.
Okay, that makes sense. Item 3, standards are applied. This feels a little more in the weeds.
It is, but this is the stuff that actually breaks integrations. The classic one is date formats or phone numbers. Do you include the country code? Do you use dashes or parentheses?
It seems so trivial until you try to automate a text message campaign and half of them fail because the system doesn't recognize the phone number format.
Or a bigger one, you merge with a company in Europe and all of a sudden 02/05/2024 means May 2nd to them and February 5th to you. And now your revenue recognition is off by 3 months. Standards prevent that kind of chaos.
Got it. Okay, item 4, integration points are mapped.
This is all about avoiding what people call spaghetti architecture. You need a map. You need to know where the data is coming from and where it's going. You can't just plug systems together and hope for the best.
This feels like where the leftover screws really, really hide. People just build these quick connections between two systems without ever writing it down.
And then a year later, one system gets an upgrade, it
Yeah.
changes a field name, and suddenly 5 downstream reports just crash. And nobody has any idea why because there's no map. The checklist says you draw the map first.
And finally, number 5, data quality rules are defined.
This is basically asking the question, what does good look like? Can a customer record even exist without an email address? Is Mickey Mouse a valid name for a new client?
I have seen so many databases filled with test, and as-def because nobody put a simple validation rule on the field.
Exactly. If you don't define the rules for what's allowed before you turn the system on, your users will fill it with garbage. And once the garbage is in there, believe me, it is 10 times more expensive to clean it out later.
That's actually a perfect segue into the economics of this, because I think that's the only way you can really win this argument with leadership. We talked about the 6-month wobble, but what's the actual cost of the repair?
The source is very blunt about it. Rebuilding always costs more than building properly the first time. There's this idea in quality management called the 110-100 rule.
Break that down for us.
It says it costs, let's say, $1 to verify a piece of data when you first enter it. It costs $10 to clean it up later when you find an error in a report. And it costs $100 if you do nothing. And that bad data causes a failure, like you ship 1,000 products to the wrong address, or you lose a major customer.
So when a manager says, we don't have time for the checklist, it'll slow us down, what they're really saying is, I would rather pay $100 later than pay $1 now.
They're mortgaging their future time. They're trading 1 week of delay now for months and months of painful rework later. And that's the argument you have to make. This isn't about slowing down the build. It's about making sure the whole structure doesn't collapse when the business actually leans on it.
When the business leans on it. I keep coming back to that phrase because eventually it will. They're going to want to use AI. They're going to want to do predictive analytics.
And you cannot do AI with wobbly tables. It's
No.
impossible. If you feed garbage data into an AI model, you just get garbage answers faster. If you want to do the cool advanced stuff, you have to get the boring structural stuff right first.
So practically speaking, let's say someone listening wants to start this on Monday. We have the checklist. Do they just email it to everyone and hope for the best?
No, the source recommends you embed it into the project lifecycle. You make it a gate.
A gate.
Yeah. In project management, you have phases, right? Design, build, test, deploy. You put a gate right before deploy. You literally cannot mark the project as completed until someone produces that checklist with all the boxes ticked.
So it becomes part of the system. It's not a favor you're asking. It's you cannot launch this unless you can prove the data is safe.
Exactly. It just becomes the standard operating procedure. It becomes the manual that you're not allowed to throw away.
I want to talk to the skeptics for a second. There's probably someone listening who's thinking, this all sounds great, but my company moves too fast. We're a startup. We move fast and break things.
And that's a valid culture for some things. But data. Data is different. You can change your website's color scheme in an hour. You can rewrite your marketing copy overnight. But data is historical. It accumulates.
If you screw up your data collection for a whole year, you have a year's worth of mess to clean up. You can't just pivot out of bad data.
Right. Move fast and break things is great advice for code. It is terrible advice for data records. Because once you break the trust in the data, it is incredibly hard to get that trust back. Once your sales team decides the CRM is full of junk, they'll just stop using it. And then your entire investment is gone.
So to recap, we've covered the problem, the fast launch, the 6-month wobble. We've covered the solution, that 5-point build checklist. And we've covered the sales pitch. It's not governance, it's quality assurance.
It's structural integrity.
Before we wrap up, I think we should leave the listeners with a bit of a challenge. The next time you're in a meeting and everyone is celebrating how fast a project is moving, be the person who asks about the screws.
It takes courage. It really does.
Yeah.
Because you will be the one slowing down momentum. You'll be the one asking, wait, who owns this? Or where's the data dictionary for this?
You're going to feel like a bit of a buzzkill in that moment.
You will. But you're the only one in that room saving them from a total disaster 6 months from now. You're the one making sure the table will actually hold the weight.
And if you're already in the middle of a wobble, if your reports are broken, your users are angry, and everyone is blaming the software tool,
Stop blaming the tool.
ask yourself, is the tool actually broken? Or did we just throw away the instructions before we started building?
It's a painful question. But answering it honestly is the only way you're ever going to stop the cycle. You have to stop buying new furniture and just learn how to assemble the pieces you already have.
And that's the thought for the day. Check your screws, everyone. Don't let the wobble happen to you. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one.